Chair Stevens, you can proceed.
Good morning. Welcome to the May meeting of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill Board of Trustees. It's the final meeting for several of us and the last meeting of the academic year. Start out with, let me just remind you a few logistics. Board members and others who may be participating in the room, please use your microphone when you speak. And also those on Zoom who will be presenting to us, please mute your microphone until you are speaking. And I want to introduce our new student body president, Lamar Richards. Welcome, Lamar, to the Board of Trustees. We're looking forward to your service on the board as a representative of our student body. I'd like to now recognize the Honorable Cheryl Beasley, former Chief Justice of the state of North Carolina, who will administer the oath. Justice Beasley.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and to Chancellor Guskowitz and all the members of the Board of Trustees, to the Cabinet for the Student Government Association, and to all of you who are watching and your family and friends. This truly is a wonderful opportunity to see Lamar Richards in leadership of the Student Government Association for the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I am honored to administer the oath to him at this time. Are you ready to receive the oath?
Yes, ma'am.
Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. Do you, Lamar Gregory Richards, solemnly swear that you will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith, and that you will faithfully discharge the duties of your office as a member of the Board of Trustees of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill? Further, do you solemnly and sincerely swear that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, and that you will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of your knowledge and ability, so help you God?
I do.
Congratulations.
Chief Justice Beasley, thank you so much for being with us this morning and administering the oath of office. We do appreciate your presence. And Lamar, again, congratulations to you. You follow a long line of distinguished student body presidents serving on this board since the 1970s. Now, with that behind us, let's ask Secretary Teresa Artis-Neal to call the roll.
Ms. Artis-Neal, present. Mr. Bolick.
Present.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Kobe.
Here.
Mr. Cochran. Mr. Davis.
Present.
Mr. Duckett.
Here.
Mrs. Hopkins. Mr. McCullen. Mr. Meekins.
Present.
Mr. Pryor.
Present.
Mr. Richards.
Present.
Mr. Stevens.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. As Chair of the Board of Trustees, it's now my responsibility to remind all members of the board of their duty under the State Government Ethics Act to avoid conflicts of interest and appearances of conflicts of interest as required by this act. Each member has received the agenda and related information for this Board of Trustees meeting. If any member knows of any conflict of interest or appearance of conflict of interest with respect to any matter coming before the Board of Trustees at this meeting, the conflict or the appearance of conflict should be identified at this time. And for the record, I will not be participating or voting in the Finance and Infrastructure and Audit Committee items concerning designers when that report comes forward. Having already read the materials under the consent agenda, is there any item that needs to be moved to the discussion portion of either the open or the closed session agenda. Those items are the minutes of the March 24th, 25th, 2021, and the April 5th meeting. If not, entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
So moved and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Consent agenda stands approved. I'm not sure if Governor Powers is able to be with us this morning. Governor Powers, are you on Zoom call? Governor Powers is our liaison from the Board of Governors. He's attended, I think, every meeting we've had since he's been in that role, and he was, some of you may have attended or watched graduation this past weekend, gave a very stirring introduction from the Board of Governors to the graduating students on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. As Chair of the Board of Trustees, I want to start my remarks by recognizing the end of a challenging yet extraordinary academic year. Our university has not just endured, but thrived during the pandemic. This is thanks to the hard work and dedication of our students, our faculty, and staff. We're grateful for the entire community for their efforts. As I mentioned, I had the opportunity to attend one of the commencement ceremonies at Keenan Stadium on Saturday. It was incredible to see the class of 21 celebrate with their fans, with their friends and families. I was reminded of how far we've come this year and the commitment and love of this university that is felt by all of us. I know I speak for our entire board when I say that we appreciate the sacrifices our community has made to fulfill our mission of service to our state, the nation, and indeed the world. Yesterday afternoon, we had the privilege of celebrating this year's honorary degree recipients: Ann Cates, Lowry Caudle, Kissimmee Corbett, Don Curtis, Anthony Fauci, Bernadette Gray Little, Carla Hayden, William Luchtenberg, and to recognize the late I. Beverly Lake Jr. These individuals have had an incredible impact on our campus and on our world. They embody the mission of this university and have inspired us all. Please join me in another round of applause for these outstanding honorees. Today is my 72nd and last regular meeting over 12 years of service on this board. It's been an incredible journey, serving with 5 chancellors, leading 2 chancellor searches, attending hundreds of meetings and events, and hearing countless presentations from our amazing faculty, staff, and students. However, my favorite aspect of being on this board is the relationships we've built with this university community. I want to say a special thank you to Chancellor Guskowicz. Especially this year, during the pandemic, the job has only become more difficult. I've spent many hours on the phone and in meetings with the Chancellor, and I am consistently impressed with the job you're doing. In the midst of making very difficult and almost impossible decisions, the Chancellor listened to constituencies on campus and across our state. He led with wisdom, integrity, and with an eye always focused on the future. Kevin, thank you for the hard work you've done this year. I know I speak for the entire board in saying we're so grateful to you, sir. And I want to conclude with one final reflection on my time here on the board. The most important thing that each one of us can do is to remember every day why we are here: to serve the people of North Carolina by supporting, strengthening, and building this great university. Never forget your calling and always stay focused on the mission of service. For me, I know that I've learned so much as a member of this board. As I said in my commencement remarks, I'm still being shaped by this university, even 51 years since my own graduation. I encourage each of us to keep learning and serving the university every day. It has given so much, and it has been a privilege to be able to give back. Thank you to each member of this board. It's been an honor to serve with you. And thank you to all the staff who've helped to make all of our board meetings and all we do possible. We truly appreciate your efforts. Now we have a number of honorary resolutions to consider. There are several of them. We're going to wear out our good secretary, but I'm going to call on Teresa Artis Neal to read the resolutions, and I'm going to suggest that we take a single vote on all the resolutions at the conclusion of the meeting.
Resolution of appreciation. Jefferson Brown, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, May 20th, 2021. Whereas Jefferson W. Brown has served as a member of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill Board
Excuse
of
me.
Trustees for
Please
8
excuse me.
years.
Excuse me. Ladies and gentlemen, you're certainly welcome to be here, but please do not interrupt the meeting. Please do not interrupt the meeting, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to be here.
We will not be moved. We will not be moved.
Do you want me to continue?
No, not yet.
We will not be moved.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Campus Free Speech Act, passed by the General Assembly in 2017, requires us to protect the rights of the audience to see and hear the event, and to protect the right of the speakers to be heard and seen. Any person who disrupts the event or interferes with the rights of those in attendance to hear or see the speakers will be asked to leave. Anyone who does not leave when asked or does not put down signs which obstruct the audience view will be removed, may be subject to arrest. Please proceed.
Resolution of appreciation. Jefferson W. Brown, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, May 20th, 2021. Whereas Jefferson W. Brown has served as a member of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill Board of Trustees for 8 years, and whereas Mr. Brown was a thoughtful and valued voice in board discussions as a member of the Finance, Infrastructure, and Audit Committee, the Strategic Framework Committee, and the search committees for the Dean of the Law School and Vice Chancellor and General Counsel. And whereas Mr. Brown served as chair of the Personnel Committee for 6 years, assisting board chairs, chancellors, and the board with sensitive personnel matters, often requiring innovative approaches with key stakeholders. And whereas Mr. Brown advocated for a renewed focus on civil discourse as a member of the advisory board of the Program for Public Discourse, and through his focus on institutional policies and the implementation of the university's strategic plan, Carolina Next, Innovations for Public Good. And whereas Mr. Brown has provided valued counsel, often behind the scenes on a range of efforts, committees, and other working groups throughout his service as a member of the board. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that members of the Board of Trustees of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill deeply thank Jefferson Brown and express their great appreciation for his leadership and devoted service to this board, the university, and the state of North Carolina. Resolution of appreciation, G. Monroe Kobe, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, May 20th, 2021. Whereas G. Monroe Kobe has served as a member of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill Board of Trustees for 2 years, whereas Mr. Kobe served as an essential member of various board committees, devoting significant time and attention to advancing the mission of the university, and whereas Mr. Kobe served the university in a variety of capacities, including as a member of the UNC Foundation Board, the Educational Foundation Board, and the Lineberger Cancer Center Board of Visitors, and as a member of the Vice Chancellor for Finance and Operations Search Committee, and whereas Mr. Kobe served the university and community primarily during a time of extraordinary challenges, helping to guide the board and university through navigating the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that members of the Board of Trustees of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill deeply thank Monroe Kobe and express their great appreciation for his leadership and devoted service to this board, the university, and the state of North Carolina. Resolution of appreciation, Hayward D. Cochran, Jr., University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, May 20th, 2021. Whereas Hayward D. Cochran, Jr. has served as a member of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill Board of Trustees for 8 years, leading as chair of the Board of Trustees from 2017 to 2019, providing counsel and leadership to the university through his service as a trustee. Whereas Mr. Cochran has helped develop the financial stewardship of the university, guide the financial stewardship of the university, serving as member of Real Estate Holdings Board, UNC Management Company, and Carolina Research Ventures Board, providing counsel to the Chancellor and fellow board members on a variety of issues. Whereas Mr. Cochran provided exceptional counsel on all facets of the university as chair of the Finance, Infrastructure, and Audit Committee, a member of the Chancellor Search Committee, and Vice Chancellor for Medical Affairs Search Committee. And through his guidance on the university's strategic plan, Carolina Next, Innovations for Public Good, and Campus Master Plan. And whereas Mr. Cochran demonstrated his great love for the university by devoting considerable time and attention to his service as a member of the board, logging immeasurable hours in phone calls advocating for the university's need. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that members of the Board of Trustees of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill deeply thank Haywood Cochran and express their great appreciation for his leadership and devoted service to this board, the university, and the state of North Carolina. Resolution of appreciation for Chuck Duckett, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, May 20th, 2021. Whereas, Charles G. Duckett. Whereas Charles G. Duckett has served as a member of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill Board of Trustees for 8 years, and whereas Mr. Duckett helped guide the university's decision-making and investments during the next decade through his work on the university's strategic plan, Carolina Next, Innovations for Public Good, and the Campus Master Plan. And whereas Mr. Duckett provided service to the university in a variety of areas, including as chair of the University Affairs Committee, as the board's representative on the Faculty Honorary Degrees and Special Awards Committee, as member of the Educational Foundation Board, the WUNC Public Radio Board, and the Ready Pandemic Research Program, among others. And whereas Mr. Duckett, as a member of the search committees for the Chancellor and the Vice Provost for Enrollment, has contributed his time, efforts, and insight to ensuring successful placement in key roles that will guide the future of the university. And whereas Mr. Duckett originally proposed honoring the university's beloved and revered basketball coach, Roy Williams, by placing his name on the court in the Dean E. Smith Center, now, therefore, let it be resolved that members of the Board of Trustees of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill deeply thank Charles Duckett and express great appreciation for his dedication and service to this board, the university, and the state of North Carolina. Resolution of appreciation, Kelly Matthew Hopkins, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, May 20th, 2021. Whereas Kelly Matthew Hopkins has served as a member of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill Board of Trustees for 8 years. And whereas Ms. Hopkins served as chair of the External Relations Committee, vice chair of the Strategic Framework Committee, and as a member of the Enterprise Risk Management Task Force and the University Affairs, Finance, Infrastructure, and Audit, and Personnel Committees. And whereas Ms. Hopkins championed the implementation of the university's strategic plan, Carolina Next, Innovations for Public Good, serving as a member of the Carolina Next Advisory Committee to guide the decision-making of the university for the next decade. And whereas Ms. Hopkins served the university and community as a member of numerous other boards and committees, including WUNC Public Radio, the Mental Health Task Force, and the Campus Health Services Advisory Group, utilizing her experience and knowledge to further the mission of the university and its service to the state of North Carolina. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that members of the Board of Trustees of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill deeply thank Kelly Hopkins and express their great appreciation for her leadership and devoted service to this board. Resolution of appreciation, Richard Y. Stevens, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, May 20th, 2021. Whereas Richard Y. Stevens returned to serve as a member of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill Board of Trustees for 4 years, in addition to his previous 8 years of service as a member and as chair of the board. And whereas Mr. Stevens has led the Board of Trustees as chair from July 8th, 2019 through May 20th, 2021, providing steady leadership and thoughtful management to the university throughout his service as a trustee. And whereas Mr. Stevens has guided the financial stewardship of the university, serving as chair of the Endowment Fund, the UNC Foundation Board, and the Real Estate Holdings Board, as a member of the Investment Fund Board and UNC Management Company, providing counsel to the Chancellor and fellow board members on a variety of issues. And whereas Mr. Stevens provided exceptional counsel on all facets of the university, including on the adoption of the university's strategic plan, Carolina Next, Innovations for Public Good, and whereas Mr. Stevens served as chair of the Chancellor's Search Committee during a critical time for the university, leading an effort that resulted in unanimous confirmation of a new chancellor and his installation on University Day 2020. And whereas Mr. Stevens, as chair, guided the trustees and the university through one of the most significant challenges in recent memory, the COVID-19 pandemic, leading with great humility, composure, and unyielding dedication to the mission of the university. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that members of the Board of Trustees of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill deeply thank Richard Stevens and express their great appreciation for his vision, leadership, and devoted service to this board, the university, and the state of North Carolina.
Thank you. That's a motion from the secretary. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Secretary, Vice Chair Davis, further discussion, debate on the resolutions. If not, all in favor of the adoption, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We almost didn't have a quorum be able to vote on that one. So many of us leaving. Thank you all. I know I speak for all of my trustees who are departing together today, and thanking you for that recognition, but thanking you for the opportunity and honor of serving with you these last several years. Now I want to welcome Student Body President and new trustee, Lamar Richards, and turn it over to him for comments. Lamar.
All right. Thank you, Chair Stevens, and thank you all. It's an honor to serve Carolina as its new student body president and to have been sworn in to serve as the sole student member of this body, charged with representing the interests and belief of more than 30,000 of this university's most central stakeholders, its students, undergraduate, graduate, and professional alike. Furthermore, I am truly honored to have been sworn in this morning by former Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court, Cherry Beasley. I give my sincere thanks to Chief Justice Beasley for being a part of this ceremony on this historic day as the first African-American woman to serve our great state as Chief Justice. A historic day indeed. A historic day not only for those here today or those listening in, but for our Carolina community as a whole. A historic day for us all, having navigated unparalleled uncertainty this past year as students, as faculty, as staff, as alumni, and as community members. This past year has challenged us to continue learning, grappling, leading, looking, and innovating towards tomorrow, towards our collective tomorrow. A tomorrow that intentionally recognizes our shared past, that reckons with our shared history, but realizes tomorrow's potential. Walking into this new phase of my life, my wonderful team and I established several foundational pillars that will hopefully guide the work of student governance and shared governance at the university over the next century or so. Those of collective belonging, effective governance, public good, expanding resources, and institutional advancement. It is my sincere hope to secure a Carolina that supports and enriches each and every one of its students, not just some. Not as an option, but rather as a mandate. A Carolina that is just, equitable, and inclusive in thought, yes, but also in intentional action. It is this very spirit of action, not of words, that I look forward to embodying and expecting this coming year in this space. As we continue to blaze ahead in unknown territory, one thing remains certain now more than ever. The future of this university is not a result of any single person, but rather the collective of many people working together for the good and the betterment of the place we all love and cherish. The time has come to envision a place that we all can and should be. It is time to grow and expand our professional and leadership development opportunities for our community members, especially my peers from historically marginalized and underrepresented communities. It is as such that my team and I look forward to finalizing the institution of our Emerging Leaders Program to expose incoming first-year students to the foundations of student governance, leadership, and professional development via cohort-style programming and engagement. As a research university, it is also time to improve and enhance student access to research opportunities. It is for this very reason that our administration will finalize implementation of a research scholars program, allowing underrepresented students access to paid research opportunities with UNC faculty mentors throughout the academic year. It is also time to institute and forward in pursuing bold academic exclusion and forgiveness policies for students here at UNC-Chapel Hill. No longer should UNC claim to catch up to its peer institution when it comes to ensuring equitable access to academic forgiveness policies for its students, when peer institutions, even here in the UNC system, already have successful versions of an academic exclusion or forgiveness policy in place. It is time for our graduate and professional students to not only receive their deserved representation on this very board of trustees, but to also deserve a university that invests in raising graduate and professional stipends to livable wages. It's why I am proud to be working alongside Neil Swami, UNC's graduate and professional student government president this year, to ensure that all graduate and professional students, regardless of what they are studying, what social identities they may hold, or where they call home, are appropriately and equitably compensated for their scholarly contributions to our institution. Neil and I will also advocate to ensure that graduate and professional student voices are clearly and holistically represented in our institution's decision-making spaces. If there's one thing we have learned from the past year, it is that flexibility, patience, and understanding are all virtues that one must hold, especially in navigating events as historic and inequitable as a global pandemic, as well as the ongoing hatred and bigotry in our state and across the country towards Black individuals, towards individuals in the Asian American community, towards our transgender friends and community members. In stepping into this role, this task, I do so with grace and humility, recognizing that my job here is not to just be another trustee, but to bring forward the perspectives, ideals, and thoughts of 30,000 individual people, because that's what we all are, individuals. Our communities are not monolithic, and neither are our identities. So as I address you all today, I do so with a sense of pride in my peers who are so very intelligent and worthy of good and quality representation in both me and their leadership. In the midst of adversity, upon adversity, it is time for our university to rise to the challenge, to lead by example, to be flexible, patient, understanding, and compassionate as students, faculty, staff, and community members continue to navigate the far-reaching effects of the COVID-19 pandemic into the summer and during the next academic year. As you probably can tell, I have a lot to say. In a world filled with uncertainty, I assure you that will remain constant as I attempt to do my best as the only student in this space. I hope we are all able to work together to secure a better, brighter tomorrow for all Tar Heels. Thank you once again. It is truly an honor to represent Carolina student body on this board of trustees, and I pray for a promising and prosperous year ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Richard. And again, welcome to the board. I want to recognize Chancellor Guskowicz for his remarks and introduction of our program today.
Great. Well, thank you, Richard. And I want to thank all of our outgoing Board of Trustee members. Your service to the university has been invaluable, and we're grateful for your hard work and commitment to Carolina Next Innovations for Public Good, which you endorsed last January, and I'm committed as your chancellor to continue to advance the university through that roadmap for success, and I'm grateful for all of your hard work in that. Richard, I want to particularly thank you for your leadership of the board. You've been an amazing partner over these past few years, and I also want to congratulate you and Jerry on Andy's graduation from Carolina this past Saturday. I know it meant a lot for you and Jerry to be there to see Andy celebrated on Saturday. So I'd just like to offer up a round of applause for our outgoing trustees and thank you. And I also want to welcome Lamar Richards. Lamar, we've had an opportunity to work together over the past year. I'm looking forward to seeing the way in which you'll represent the student body, and you're going to do it with passion, a lot of energy, and I look forward to working with you this year. I also want to acknowledge Shana Hill, our outgoing chair of the Employee Forum. Shana also, we heard from Shana yesterday. She has led with passion for several years. We've done a lot together. We formed the new Staff Advisory Committee, And she has, I know will remain committed. She'll still be representing the staff assembly at the system level. And I just want to acknowledge all of Shana's hard work and how much I've appreciated working with her. Last weekend, we had 5 commencement ceremonies, and it was really important for us to be back in that environment, an environment in which our students and their families deserved to be celebrated. And leading up to commencement, it was wonderful to see so many of our graduates outside the old well, outside my office at the old well, taking photographs in their Carolina blue caps and gowns. We just, again, this past weekend was really special with 5 ceremonies held over 3 days, and how we really appreciated all of the hard work and efforts of so many people that made that possible for our graduates and their families. Really proud of the way in which we finished this academic year. We finished really strong. We kept cases, COVID cases low, limited the spread of the virus, and allowed our campus to focus on our mission of teaching, research, and service. And I want to acknowledge the hard work of so many people. We talk about this being a community in which we come together to solve big problems, and we certainly did that in this case. Want to put out a special shout out to Dr. Amir Barzan, who led our testing program, our COVID testing program this past semester. His entire team really helped to keep our campus community safe. And you know, here in Orange County, I'm also proud of the fact that we have the highest vaccination rate in the state. And this is no doubt, and thanks to our students and our employees who have taken the vaccine to protect themselves and our community here. And I'm encouraged by the progress, and we're going to continue our efforts to urge everyone to get vaccinated. You'll be seeing campus messages throughout the summer trying to just encourage everyone as we think about being back this summer and back in the fall for an in-person experience. Chair Stevens and I had the opportunity to attend the Watauga Club meeting this 2 nights ago, and over at the Umstead, and Governor Cooper was the speaker. And one of the things he said resonated with me, and I thought I'd share it with you. And he was talking about the vaccinations, and he said the biggest side effect of the vaccine is joy. And I think there's something to be said about that. And I think we're seeing that on our campus. Students, faculty, and staff are coming back, and they're excited about being back. Despite the challenges, we have kept our campus operating with safety at the forefront, and this could not have happened without the hard work of so many people. So I just want to, again, thank all the volunteers and every member of our campus community that made this possible. While the news has focused on this pandemic, what has amazed me this past year is our ability to continue our mission to accomplish great things. We recently had 4 of our faculty members elected to the National Academy of Sciences. Carrie Bloom, Joseph Kieber, and Ted Salmon from the Department of Biology, and Ralph Barrick from our Gilling School of Global Public Health. And we're going to hear from Dr. Barrick here in a little while. Also, Arturo Escobar was elected to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. It's rare that we would have 5 members elected to those academies in a given year, and I just think it speaks to the excellence of our world-class faculty here at Carolina that we're so proud of. Our research numbers have remained strong. As you know, we're ranked, among the top universities in the country around coronavirus research. Microsoft Academic ranked us first for most of this past year with the impact that our research has had. To date, we've had $96 million come into the university in COVID-19 related research just in the past year, and this is incredible. And last year, as you know, we topped the $1.1 billion mark in overall research expenditures, and ranking us 12th among all universities across the country. And we're on track this year for another record year to probably top 1.3 billion. One example is a grant that we received. The National Longitudinal Study of Adolescent to Adult Health was recently awarded $38.2 million from the NIH to continue to lead its study of adolescence into adulthood. And that's a study that we have held here and been conducting here at Carolina now for over 20 years. This will enable researchers to follow the group into their 40s and better understand how early life during adolescence and young adulthood matters for health and well-being in middle age and beyond. The Also, in good news, 200, this year's 2021 Buckley Scholars had combined for over 130,000 community service hours over their 4 years. And this is 260 students who have been Buckley Scholars at the university. And this is really the equivalent to watching every show and movie on Netflix 3 times over, I've been told, over 130,000 community service hours. So kudos to this incredible group. And then this year we had, to the class of 2020 graduates, we had Peter Endriga and Sarah McKenzie won Rhodes Scholarships. And in the class of 2021, Patrick Clinch won the Marshall Scholarship. And then we can talk about our incredible athletes on our campus. I mean, if we look back to this past June, July, August, there were a lot of questions about whether we were going to be able to compete in intercollegiate athletics this year. And proud to say that we stayed the course. We put all the safety measures in place. And we've had an incredible year on our playing fields and courts and in the pool. But field hockey, as you know, won their 9th national title and their 3rd in a row. And we're going to hear from Coach Karen Shelton here very shortly. What's incredible is that team has never lost in Karen Shelton Stadium. Both our men's and women's lacrosse teams will play in the NCAA quarterfinals this weekend. And the men's tennis team advanced to the Final Four. The women's tennis team advanced to the Final Four, and they'll be playing. I don't know how many people stayed up to watch that last night, but we beat Duke last night, and we'll be playing again tomorrow. But I couldn't be more proud of our student athletes and the entire athletics department for making games possible this year. We had the opportunity to host our new ACC Commissioner, Jim Phillips, welcoming him back to campus a few weeks ago, where Bubba and Lisa Broom and others spent a day with Jim Phillips. He's going to do an incredible job of leading the ACC. But I also want to take this opportunity to acknowledge and recognize one of our own, John Swafford, who was our athletics director for several years before becoming the ACC commissioner, served for 23 years. And John is certainly a Tar Heel legend and someone we should be proud of, and looking forward to seeing John back on campus. As he's told me, he wants to come back and try to serve in some capacity. So we're looking forward to seeing John. And so that leads me then to our presentation for today. And we have an opportunity today. We're going to hear from Coach Karen Shelton and Coach Hubert Davis, who are with us today. And so I've asked Bubba to welcome Coach Shelton and Coach Davis. And I'm going to share just a little bit about Coach Shelton here. And one of the cool things about Coach Shelton and I is we both graduated from Westchester University, and we're proud Golden Rams. But Coach Shelton has won 3 straight national championships, 9 total, 12th straight Final Four, 11th-time Coach of the Year, and this year became the winningest coach in field hockey history with 701 wins. And ACC Network named her the top female coach of all time. And so we're grateful to have Karen with us today. Coach Shelton.
Thank you all. It's an honor to be here before you today. And I was going to bring the trophy, but once you've seen one, you've seen them all. So I didn't need to lug that along. But I do want to thank Kevin for his leadership, Bubba's for his leadership in getting us through this difficult year. Our student athletes, our medical staff, absolutely amazing, not only to keep us safe, but to keep us thriving. So very, very proud. Our stars aligned for us. Old Dominion was supposed to host the Final Four, and when they couldn't do it, we put in a bid. And we, of course, got to showcase that beautiful stadium, and we just were able to win. And it wasn't easy, I will say. Our last 5 games were all overtime. We found a way to win in each one of those. Of course, you probably have heard of a young woman named Erin Matson. great student and a fantastic player, and she really helps set us apart. We have a team around Erin, but she really is a fantastic goal scorer and helped lead the way for us this year. I just want to tell you that, throughout the course of this pandemic, our kids have been thriving in the classroom. We're still 2 grades shy of the complete report for this semester, but our team has averaged a 3.55, and that's pretty darn good. So I won't keep you any longer, but I do want you to know what a privilege it is for me to represent this great university. I come to work every day and pinch myself that I have an administration that is behind the student athletes. We do it the right way. And I just love the support we have for our kids, and we put them in a position to be successful. So thank you all so much. And thank you for your leadership going forward. Go Heels.
Thank you, Karen. And it is unbelievable. Basically, she started our program. She's been here 40 years. And that's what is so really good about Carolina athletics. We talk about the 800 student athletes. We talk about the 28 teams, but it's our coaches that actually have been able to maintain that success over such a long period of time. And so we had the transition this year from Coach Williams and trying to find the next leader of our basketball program. We're the only school in the country that can say that we've had a consistent level of performance over basically a 60-year period. And to continue that legacy and to take us to even newer heights, we have a brand new head coach and head coach Hubert Davis. Hubert, 18, come on.
Thank you very much. Coach Shelton said, you've seen the national championship trophy, you've seen them all. I want to see them all. Okay, so every time we win a championship, we're gonna bring this trophy here to this meeting right here every year. Okay. But I appreciate Bubba for asking me to be here, because I just formally wanted to just thank everybody here. I know that the position that I have right now, I wouldn't be in this position without your support. I've talked a lot about giving people an opportunity and a chance, and you've given me that chance and that opportunity to be in this position. I have talked to the players a number of times, and talked to recruits, and talked to friends and family about my experience here at Carolina, and thinking about growing up and always wanted to be a part of this university and this program, and to think that I had a chance to go here, to go to school here, to play basketball here, to be an assistant coach here for the last 9 years, and now I'm the head coach here. It's a pretty neat deal. All of our student athletes are back on campus now. They started the first session of summer school yesterday. And, one of the things that we talked about, we had a team meeting on Tuesday, and I told them that my requirement for them is to be excellent in 3 areas: one on the court, in the classroom, and their conduct in the community. And I said, there's no negotiation. Every day you're required to be excellent in those 3 areas. And I just got back from vacation. I don't know if you've ever been to St. Lucia. You need to put it on your bucket list. It's very nice. And just having a time just to process and think about things. And I told RJ Davis that I can't remember a time that I've been as fired up as I am right now. I told them that each player, I desperately want them to love this place as much as I do. I said that my experience here at Carolina was off the chart, but it wasn't without rainy days, cloudy days, thunderstorms. But what got me through those times of adversities, because I knew that I wanted to be here. This was the right place for me. And I want every player to desperately feel that and have that same experience. I told them that I desperately want them to have the experience of winning the national championship. I've been to that last day, that Monday night, and I told them I want them on that podium on Monday night. I want them cutting down that net. I want that celebration and those smiles in that locker room. And that's something that I desperately want them to experience and feel. And then I also told them that I want them to experience and be able to achieve all their hopes and dreams. I know a lot of them want to go to the NBA. but I want them at their time here, whether they're here 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years. I want them to unpack their bags. I want them to be fully committed to this university and to this program. And that not only do we want them to get to the MBA, we want them to stay there and have longevity. And then after they have a long MBA career, I want them to come back here and raise their family here in Chapel Hill, because this is home to them. And so I just, again, wanted to thank you again for giving me a chance and giving me an opportunity. And I am excited and I am ready to go. Thank you.
Thanks, Hubert. One thing that he's got those three things that they all have to do, but the one I like best is his fourth one, which is anytime a player comes into the office, they have to go see him and say hello. Instead of on their phone, instead of going straight to the locker room, it's that personal connection. I love the old saying that says nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And nobody cares more about their players in this place than Hubert Davis. So really appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you. Thanks. It's a great day to be a Tar Heel. Go Heels.
Coach Sheldon, before you go, Coach Sheldon, before you go, you've been doing great things for a long, long time at this university, and we know you're going to continue to do great things. Coach Davis, welcome. We know you're going to do great things as well. So thanks to both of you for what you do every single day for our student athletes and for this university. Thank you, Bubba, for your leadership.
So now it's my pleasure to introduce to you one of the newest members of the National Academy of Sciences, Dr. Ralph Barrick. And Dr. Barrick, you've seen him all over the news, the local news, the national news over this past 15 months throughout the pandemic. He is the William R. Keenan Jr. Distinguished Professor in the Department of Epidemiology and Professor in the Department of Microbiology and Immunology here at Carolina. He has spent the past 3 decades as a world leader in the study of coronaviruses and one of the main drivers in the world in leadership in coronavirus research. Dr. Barrick is one of the reasons that Microsoft Academia has had Carolina ranked first over this past 15 months throughout the pandemic for the impact that we've had in combating the virus. So it is my honor to introduce to you Dr. Barrick. He's going to give a little presentation, and then we'll have time for a few questions and answers. So Dr. Barrick, thanks for being with us.
Well, thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. Let me take a second to bring up some slides, and I can get started. So it's a pleasure to give you a brief update on countermeasure response and where things stand and what sort of future problems we might be facing and solutions that we're working on to improve global health. Just note that I've got collaborations with a large number of companies that are involved in therapeutic and vaccine design. They're listed on the bottom of the slide. I hate to start off with a little bit of a morbid slide, but I think it's important that people know what the impact of COVID-19 has on global populations. Starting off as a relatively benign virus in early 2019, there have now been 164 million infections worldwide, resulting in about 3.4 million deaths, including 588,000 deaths in the United States. There are about 800 million people that have been vaccinated worldwide, which is about 12% of the population. There are about 800,000 infections a day, mostly in the developing world like India and Brazil. And at least 15,000 deaths per day, and that's probably heavily underreported. The true scope and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, unfortunately, is probably shown more realistically on this slide. And epidemiologists are beginning to calculate a more accurate annual death rate associated with the pandemic using excess annual death rates as measures of the true impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. That data argues that most countries are 20 to 40% underreporting the amount of disease associated with the pandemic. And the prediction currently is that there's about 6.9 million deaths that have occurred globally, including up to 900,000 deaths in the United States. Other groups that have analyzed this argue that it's closer to 700,000, but you get the picture that this virus has had a dreadful impact on the entire world's population and economy. Now, our group has studied zoonotic coronaviruses, especially the emerging coronaviruses, for 20 years now, soon after the emergence of SARS coronavirus in 2003. And one of the things that we've been interested in identifying are the strains that exist in nature that are of high risk that could immediately or potentially jump out of animal reservoirs to cause human outbreaks, epidemics, or pandemics. And this encyclopedia here shows in essence, the high-risk strains of the coronaviruses, the SARS-like viruses, starting with SARS coronavirus from 2003 here. You've got the 2019 strain here. And then you have all these other strains which are derived from bats or pangolins or other species that also can use the human ACE2 receptor for entry. They grow on primary human cells. They cause acute respiratory distress syndrome, just like the epidemic and pandemic strains do in mice in this case. They cause more severe disease in the elderly. And as a function of amount of variation in the spike glycoprotein, which is shown right here, as they become more and more distant from the two epidemic or the pandemic strains, they begin to escape existing immune therapeutics. And one of the goals of actually creating this panel of viruses that go from A to Z in sort of the encyclopedia is it becomes a panel to identify broadly effective drugs and vaccines so that we can be in a position to prevent any future pandemics that might occur, or at least to respond quickly. And so the rest of the talk, just keep in mind that there's this encyclopedia of highly variable strains that ultimately when you develop drugs or therapeutics, immunotherapeutics or vaccines, the first problem is to solve the SARS coronavirus 2 pandemic. The second problem is to prevent anything else from emerging in nature where the global population has no countermeasure available to respond. And so in the COVID-19 pandemic, these are the small molecule inhibitors and the therapeutic antibodies that our group has participated in terms of development as countermeasures for treating COVID-19 infections in individuals. This started with remdesivir, which is the only FDA-approved drug. We had identified remdesivir in 2017 using the panel of viruses that I showed as a broad-based pan-coronavirus inhibitor that was given by intravenous inoculation into individuals. Oral derivatives of remdesivir have currently been evaluated in our lab and are moving into the clinic, and I'm not really going to talk about those. The second drug is 2801 or molnupiravir, which is in phase 3 trials now. It's another pan-coronavirus drug. It is an oral administration, and I'll have a slide to explain why this is so important. And then things like pegylated interferon, which is in phase 3 trials, a monoclonal antibody that Eli Lilly is marketing, which is under emergency use authorization, and that's now been revoked because of variants of concern that escape the ability of this antibody to protect individuals. And then antibodies that are being marketed by AstraZeneca, Adimab, and some that are in preclinical development. Importantly, these two are pan-coronavirus, so they neutralize all the viruses that I showed on that panel, and I'll show a figure of that as well. So let's talk about oral drugs. Why are they so important? Well, when COVID-19 infects an individual, you have about 4 days where you're asymptomatic, and you become asymptomatic around day 0. Notice that virus titers are exceptionally high prior to development of symptoms. Remdesivir, which is given by IV administration, doesn't get administered until people get sick, pretty sick, and are in the hospital. So that's around day 6 or 7, when the therapeutic window, shown here with this dotted line, is ending. In other words, virus titers are coming down so fast that the drug only has a minimal amount of time to work. And that's why this drug, remdesivir, really only increases time to recovery by about 5 days. If we had an oral dose, we could give it at day 0 immediately upon diagnosis, where it would be much more effective. And so there's 2 approaches to do this. One is with combination therapies. The other is an oral therapeutic, and 2801 is an oral therapeutic that we worked with Ridgeback Biosciences and Emory to develop the preclinical data that show that it worked against all coronaviruses. I guess encouraged from their work with us, they set up a phase 2 outpatient clinical trial with Billy Fisher in school medicine, as well as others in the school medicine in collaboration with people in the school of public health like Tim Sheehan. And this is just some early data showing that patients on molnupiravir in a home setting rapidly begin to clear virus. So by day 5, none of them have infectious virus anymore. The data is even more impressive now that the cohort, the clinical trial has completed and the paper is being written. But this is the first oral therapeutic. And as you might imagine, this is the kind of drug that needs to be available for the developing world to respond to the pandemic. A broadly cross-neutralizing pan-SARS coronavirus antibody. There's a lot of data here, but it's actually a really simple slide. Here's the virus particle, an antibody binds to the virus and it prevents it from binding to the receptors on the cell and preventing it from infecting the cell. So it basically kills the virus. This black arrow indicates that an antibody, which are color-coded here, the antibody that has the curve furthest to the left is the most potent antibody. And notice that the red antibody here, called ADG2, is the most potent against these animal coronavirus, SARS coronaviruses like WIV and SHCO14. And it's also the most potent antibody against SARS-2 and SARS-1. That antibody neutralizes them all effectively. So it, in essence, gets all of the viruses, SARS coronaviruses that are high risk in clade 1 and in clade 3. Importantly, it also protects in vivo, and that's why this is in phase 2 clinical trials. And it gives you an example of 2 different types of drugs that we needed to have: the SARS coronavirus specific drugs, the pan coronavirus drugs, and the SARS coronavirus specific drugs. Now, where are we going to go with therapies? Well, you've all heard of post-acute sequelae events associated with SARS-2 infection. I guess it's easier to say the long haulers, the people who have brain fog, heart and kidney disease, or chronic lung disease. UNC has developed a specific COVID recovery clinic, and the website is down here, where patients who have these chronic sequelae that occur after acute infection that can last for months to years have a place to go to get medical care. The disease that we're interested in is pulmonary fibrosis. This is an end-stage lung disease. It's typically a hit-and-run disease. So in essence, the virus infects, it replicates, it kills cells in the lung. And then after recovery, there's a dysregulated repair process that results in chronic disease that can last for years, ultimately resulting in pulmonary fibrosis. And once diagnosed, basically most patients have 3 to 5 years until the disease is lethal. The risk factors for COVID-19 and pulmonary fibrosis all overlap. The comorbidities for severe disease with COVID-19 overlap with pulmonary fibrosis, like age, smoking, obesity, male, genetic predispositions. And many SARS-2 patients, as well as SARS-1 and MERS survivors, develop pulmonary fibrosis. So we're potentially looking at another disease wave that it can occur anywhere from 3 to 10 years after this pandemic. It's associated with chronic lung fibrotic diseases, and it could potentially affect millions, even if it's only 1% of the patients that develop it. Current drugs only slow the progression of the disease. So one of the things we did working with the Marsico Lung Institute in terms of Rick Boucher is develop a model system of SARS-2-induced chronic pulmonary fibrosis. And this just shows the kind of lesions. This is a non-infected animal. These are the lesions associated with this fibrosis type disease. It's still present here at day 60. You can see that this does not look normal. And there's lots of consolidation. There's lots of collagen deposition and other features that are associated with pulmonary fibrosis, including these big lymphatic sort of organelles that emerge of chronic inflammation in the lung. And so now with this kind of model, we can begin to ask what therapeutics will prevent or reverse this long-term chronic disease signature that's seen in patients following emerging coronavirus infection. We've also been heavily involved in the development of SARS coronavirus vaccines, including most of the preclinical data in terms of developing the whole idea of mRNA-based vaccines for coronaviruses, which we worked extensively on in 2018 and 19 with MERS and with the original SARS-1 virus to evaluate whether these mRNA vaccines were efficacious. And they were, and so the SARS-2 virus spike was immediately dropped into the Moderna vaccine. Most of the animal preclinical testing was done at UNC, and ultimately this is now approved under emergency use authorization. We've also worked with the Jensen adenovirus-based vaccines, recombinant protein-based vaccines. We worked with Mount Sinai and Peter Blasey to develop live virus Newcastle disease virus vaccines for the developing world. And so this is sort of the current data. There's been 276 million doses in the US. 124 million people are fully vaccinated, which is about 38% of the population. And I wanted to put this down here just to show the impact of the vaccine. The CDC reports there have been 5,800 breakthrough infections in these 124 million vaccinated individuals, 396 required hospitalizations, and there were 74 deaths in fully vaccinated people. Remember, the mortality rate of SARS-2 is about 2%. The mortality rate in vaccinated people is 0.001, which means your odds are about 20,000-fold improved of surviving a COVID-19 exposure if you're vaccinated. So I hope everyone here in the room is vaccinated. Now, I want to talk about variants of concern just so that you have an idea of where things are going. And then I'm going to talk about these pan-SARS coronavirus vaccines in like 2 more slides to show you what we're trying to develop so that a vaccine will be on a shelf that would work against all those strains that I showed in an earlier slide. So the variants of concern are recognized by WHO as viruses that have the potential to reinfect individuals. They've undergone antigenic change in their spike. There's the UK variant, there's a South African variant, there's a Brazil variant, there's an India variant. And the 2 that are the most important are the South African and the Brazil variant, the India variant, which reduce neutralization titers 6 to 10-fold, so that if you've been vaccinated and your titer's 1 to 1,000, your titer could be 1 to 10, 1 to 100 against one of these variants of concern. And so breakthrough infections are occurring quite frequently with AstraZeneca-based vaccines and killed vaccines, especially in India and Brazil and South Africa. Now, we've tested the Moderna mRNA, or a replica of the Moderna mRNA-based vaccine to protect against this South African virus challenge. And if you mock vaccinate an animal, this is weight loss, so the more weight loss they lose, they get sicker. So a mock vaccinated animal loses a lot of weight. See this little red dot here? This is a SARS-2 mRNA vaccinated animal. It doesn't lose any weight. The mock vaccine, these are virus titers. So this is 1 million viruses in a lobe of the lung. This is 100 viruses. You can see that the mock vaccines don't provide any protection. The SARS-2 mRNA vaccines fully protect, not only in the lung, but also in the nasal turbinates. Notice that these 2 vaccines, which I'm not talking about, also protect against this variant. These are these pan-SARS coronavirus-based vaccines that I mentioned. And in this case, what David Martinez and Alex Schaefer have done in the lab is taken the spike glycoprotein of SARS-2 or SARS-1 and chimerized it. In other words, there are 3 domains on this molecule. This purple area here is called S2. The yellow area is the NTD, and the bluish area is the RBD. You can actually take the RBD from SARS coronavirus 1 and place it here, take the NTD from this bat coronavirus here and place it in the same spike. Or you can take the S2 region from SARS coronavirus 2 and build this chimera. Now you have type-specific responses against all 3 of these SARS coronavirus claims. If you boost with a different spike chimera that has the same SARS-2 S2 region and now the SARS-2 NTD domains, you focus the immune response on conserved epitopes between these two strains, selecting for increased breadth. And you can do the same thing in the RBD domain using this RBD domain from this other bat coronavirus here. And so this results in extensive breadth. You can use other spikes if you want, and this is compared to the SARS-2 vaccine. And you notice you get so much more coverage across the clades. And in fact, it works. It protects against the 351 virus, SARS-2, the original SARS strain, these bat strains, and this paper is currently under review. So in conclusion, UNC pandemic preparedness research really covers the full spectrum of the response of a pandemic from cradle to grave, from the beginnings to the end. Public health intervention, the school public health has been actively engaged in working with the state to track infections, identify high-risk scenarios that enhance spread, look at vaccine use, vaccine uptake, try to deal with vaccine hesitancy. And if you're interested in talking to people about that in public health, I would suggest you talk to Penny Gordon-Larson. A collaborative effort between the schools of public health, medicine, and pharmacy have developed this READY concept, which is Rapidly Emerging Antiviral Drug Discovery Initiative. The whole goal of this initiative is based on the recognition that when a pandemic begins, it takes a while to get antiviral drugs out on the shelf to patients. If we develop broadly pan-family virus drugs, we'll be in a much more proactive response, so a drug will be on the shelf for almost immediate use in a new pandemic setting. And so READY is this global initiative. It not only involves UNC, but other academic universities, the government, and philanthropic organizations. And along with myself, both Mark Heisey and Nat Mormon are sort of the co-founders of the concept. But certainly John Bamford has played a critical role in getting this off the ground, as well as people in pharmacy and elsewhere throughout the entire university. There's been dramatic support for this concept. And then finally, these universal vaccines that I'm talking about are designed to close this vaccine gap so that we'll have a SARS coronavirus vaccine that can potentially work against unknowns that may emerge in the future. And so hopefully we'll be able to close that gap as well. So I thank you for your attention. I hope I didn't run over too much.
Thank you. It's a great overview, Dr. Barrick.
And my last slide.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chancellor.
Yes.
Dr. Barrick, David Bolick here. Thank
Sure.
you for that presentation. Yeah, I graduated high school in 1986, and the last chapter in the biology book that I had in high school biology was entitled DNA. I think it was about 3 pages in length, and it said this is modeled on a helix, and hopefully you'll learn something about that in college. I get the distinct impression that the vaccines and the delivery methods, they're not developed on a whim. I would like for you, if you would, speak to the building blocks of science that enable you and your team and people in your field and the folks that I know that you've worked with nationally to be able to develop not only the delivery systems, but the vaccines. And then also would like for you to maybe comment on your knowledge and sort of thoughts on UNC's position nationally with respect to not only developing the research building blocks of science, but consequently the teaching of those building blocks as they are discovered.
Oh, thank you. That's a great question, and hopefully I will remember both parts as I answer it. But certainly the vaccine technology that is being used in COVID-19 is not new. The whole concept of mRNA-based vaccines began to be developed around 1998, 1999. Drew Weissman at University of Pennsylvania made major contributions into figuring out some of the fundamental problems with mRNA-based vaccine delivery. One was stability. One was preventing the mRNA-based vaccine to turn on the innate immune response, which would prevent efficient translation and rapidly degrade the mRNA-based vaccine. And so he developed and others developed over a 10 to 15 year period, technologies that allowed the mRNA to be stable, to maximize translation and expression off that RNA, and then to develop a nanoparticle based coat that allowed it to be effectively delivered to the right cells in the immune system to make a robust immune response. And personally, I was shocked. Most vaccines don't work well in the elderly, and I'm kind of interested in that concept, having gotten a little bit old over the years. But those mRNA-based vaccines work equally well in the young and the aged, and so that was extremely impressive. The adenovirus technology for the Jensen vaccines was developed in the 90s and has been used in many different, both experimental and clinical settings for the development of HIV vaccines. So these aren't fly-by-night sort of vaccine platforms. These have been well-studied platforms that have over a 20-year period been optimized for efficient induction of immunity in human populations. And I think we see the benefit of that. You know, ultimately, preparing for the future, both medically in terms of global health preparedness, in terms of economic preparedness, and being at the forefront of new technologies that can improve human life and our ability to treat and care for others is a process that begins in teaching. Number one, teaching new young individuals a love for science, a love for knowledge, a love for asking questions. And so the teaching component for preparedness for the future is absolutely critical. I mean, I remember my father said, who was a high school teacher, he said, you can never do wrong with education. And always encouraged his children to get as much education as possible. But great universities, like research universities, like the University of North Carolina, have major investments in basic science in terms of to discover new things and new ideas, and then providing an atmosphere that allows translation of those ideas into potential products to alter human health or to improve our capacity to deal with a changing world. And UNC has all of those components. And the faculty that I know, including myself, actually love the opportunity to talk to students and ask questions. And one of the fun things as a faculty member over 40 years has really been opportunities to sit with graduate students, in essence, from the beginning of their career to the end of their career, where you go from a process where you're teaching in the beginning to a process of listening to them tell you what they think and how they should do the experiment and where they would like to go with this research in the future. And as long as UNC can continue to do that and the United States continues to support that platform, I think the United States will be well positioned to move in through the 21st century with excellence.
Trustee Duckett, I think you have a question.
Dr. Barrick, thank you. A couple of observations. Your work has oftentimes been done grant by grant in time where you're going back repeatedly for funding, and a lot of our researchers are like that. I want to thank you not only for what you've done in this process for COVID, but also, and all this related work, but also for your writing and signing the letter that we get to the bottom of what may have been the origin of this. And I think that's a very important piece that you did recently, and I thank you for that. One question, we're all, I think, big supporters of the READY program. I'd ask you to explain how the READY program is valuable here and the collaboration that we have here and what makes it work versus, say, another place that may not be able to house it or doesn't have the collaboration we do, if that's a fair question.
Well, the first asset, of course, is having highly ranked schools in medicine, public health, and pharmacy in close proximity. A second major asset is that UNC is ranked 5th globally in virology research. So that's across the globe. You know, it's not just coronaviruses. We have experts in most of the major emerging viral pathogens, including many experts in contemporary human pathogens that cause significant disease burden in populations as well. So the virologic expertise is certainly here, coupled with expertise in pharmacy to take drug development from cradle to grave. In other words, from the basic science to the translational science. In addition, the School of Medicine is incredibly well positioned to perform clinical trials, much like I showed with molnupiravir. And so, and UNC has played major roles, not only just in molnupiravir, but also in the Moderna vaccine trials and also in therapeutic antibody trials. And so that clinical expertise in combination with basic science and combination with pharmacologic expertise really does provide a sort of an institutional-wide core that serves as a foundation for READY, but UNC can't do it alone. There are other experts globally that can make significant contributions, not especially into the, the basic science component of identifying new pathways that can be targeted with drugs. And so READY has to, UNC is an important component, but it's actually a global initiative, and I think it would only work as a global initiative. Having the Research Triangle Park centrally housed is also a benefit for the READY concept, and also other institutions like Duke and NC State provide this sort of infrastructural core of expertise that can be drawn upon that can help lead the way. Obviously, partnerships with companies are going to be critical. They know how to bring products to the market. Universities typically aren't as good at that. And we have to get philanthropic support. And so those are all components that need to be bridged and linked together. And you can't do that unless you have a foundation that is superb. And that's what UNC has. The second part of your question, I thank you for the comments in terms of signing the letter regarding the need to do more open investigation into the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic. I do want to say, just so that you know, that I believe that this is a natural origin event. The virus is most closely related to viruses in bats. And so it's a bat virus that emerged in humans. However, the WHO report did not do a good job of evaluating the potential for a laboratory origin-based event. And that includes review of the biological safety conditions that were used in the facility, what sort of standard operating procedures were in place to prevent exposure events, to track the health and safety of workers, and to have medical surveillance plans in place to make sure that workers couldn't potentially inadvertently transmit virus to citizens in the community. And all of those things I'm certainly required to do, and we work continuously with the EHS department here at UNC, with first responders in Orange County, and with state public health officials to make sure that we can think of all the potential events that might occur that we need to be prepared for, and to make sure that we have multiple barriers that would prevent inadvertent release of a virus. And so I do believe that the WHO report can do a good job of reviewing.
Dr. Barrick, I want to just thank you for being with us today. I want to thank you for all that you do for Carolina. Thanks for all that you and your research team have done to try to keep society safe during this pandemic, and what you're doing now to lead the efforts to protect against future pandemics and viruses. So we're grateful to you and your team, and want to congratulate you again on a well-deserved election into the National Academy of Sciences.
Well, thank you. I'm proud to be UNC Tar Heel, even though I graduated from NC State. I got to say that.
Thank you, Dr. Barrick. We do appreciate all you're doing. Let's now turn, thank you, Chancellor. Anything else on your agenda? Thank you, Chancellor. Let's now turn to the report of the External Relations Committee. Trustee Davis.
Thank you, Chairman. We had reports from the Vice Chancellor Summers and Vice Chancellor Curran in our committee. We do have 4 action items for our closed session. Like to take just a moment to offer some thanks to some folks. Want to thank TJ Scott. He has been extraordinary in helping this board and helping me personally over the last couple of years as I've joined the board. He is someone you can always turn to. We are excited for you about the next steps in your journey, but you will be missed very much. I appreciate you, TJ. I also want to thank trustees Kobe, Brown, Hopkins, and Duckett for their service to our board and our university. It has been an honor and a pleasure to serve with each of you and to learn from each of you, and I'm grateful. And of course, to Chair Richard Stevens. What an amazing leader you are. I have learned so much from you, and I'm so grateful to you for mentoring me. And I want to say on a personal note, I am really going to miss serving with you. You mean an awful lot to me. I'm so grateful. And to all of those who are departing, I want you to know that I will carry with me your love for and your devotion to this magic place, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, in all that I do and in every decision that I make going forward. And I'm grateful. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Trustee Davis. Let's now turn to the report of the Finance, Infrastructure, and Audit Committee. Trustee Pryor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday, Finance, Infrastructure, and Audit met. We heard action items from Vice Chancellor of Finance, Nate Knuffman, on an ordinance regulating traffic and parking. We heard from Dean Weber, Office of Internal Audit Work Plan for fiscal year 2022. We had the annual audit certification letter of 2021, also from Dean Weber. And we had approval of associated entity status presented to us by Vice Chancellor Knuffman, along with spending authority item by Vice Chancellor Knuffman for the Keenan Football Center renovations, the Cone Tennis Center renovations, and the Finley Golf Course training facility. All of those were approved in one action item. And then in a separate action item, the designer selection was approved. Chairman Stevens, that was the vote you abstained from and recused yourself. And Vice Chancellor Knuffman presented on the Marsico Hall and the energy management control systems. All of those were approved. Then we heard for information purposes only on the preliminary design review for the building school, the Keenan Flagler Business School from the University Architect's Office. There were several comments from members of the board on suggested changes in order to make it a more scenic and attractive new project. There was a development update from Vice Chancellor David Ruth. And we heard a financial update on the all funds budget process by Vice Chancellor Knuffman.
Chairman.
Would you like to bring forward a motion from the committee on those first set of items, the traffic and parking ordinance amendment, the work plan of internal audit, the audit certification letter, and the spending authority for the Keenan Football Center, Cone Tennis Center, and the Finley Golf Course training facility, and the associated entities approval?
Yes, sir.
Motion from the committees, or a second?
Second.
Second, several places. Any further discussion, debate? If not, all in favor of the approval of those items, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Motion carries. I'd like to turn the meeting over to Vice Chair Davis to deal with the other matter.
Very good. There's one more matter before us, and that was the designer selection for Marsico Hall and Energy Management Control Systems. That was a matter that Chair Stevens recused himself from. So that matter, is that in the form of a motion, Chair
Yes.
Pryor?
Motion.
All right, there's been a motion on behalf of the committee. Is it seconded?
Second.
Second by Trustee Bullock. Is there any debate and discussion? Seeing none, we'll move into a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by like sign? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion stands approved. Please let the record note that Chair Stevens abstained from debating and voting on the matter. I'll turn it back to Chair Stevens.
Thank you, Vice Chair Davis. Now let's turn to the report of the University Affairs Committee and Trustee Duckett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our meeting yesterday covered a couple of important items. Again, I'd like to welcome Lamar Richards, the student body president, a member of this board, and thank you for your remarks today. I'm going to follow Gene in the same fashion of thanking TJ Scott. TJ's the man. I don't know what else to say. But thank you for your service and friendship to everybody, but your sincere effort to help us all along all these years. We got a number of updates from people around campus that we need to hear from on a regular basis, including Faculty Chair Mimi Chapman. We heard a final report from Graduate and Professional Student Government President Ryan Collins, and he introduced Neil Swami, his successor, and importantly, pointed out the value of understanding the university charter. And I hope we all do that and carry that for a long time about the reason we exist. I also want to thank Shayna Hill and congratulate her on her work for the Employee Forum. She is a perfect example of a Carolina graduate and somebody that works here, cares for the people that work here, and is a great example of leadership. Then we had a admissions and enrollment update from Rachel Fellman, who's the interim vice provost for enrollment, and she and her group, of which I was proud to be part of, gave an update on possible ways to grow enrollment here, and importantly point out how enrollment has grown and where we might grow in the future and be more flexible in the ways that people might transfer in and get degrees, and also get undergraduate and graduate degrees in 5 years. That's very important and efficient. So we have some actions that we will be covering in closed session, personnel actions, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are now going to go into closed session, ladies and gentlemen, to consider a number of matters as permitted by state law. I want to thank all of those who are with us today, who will not be participating in this part of the meeting, for being here, including our guests who came with their opinions. We respect that and appreciate your patience and your professionalism and the way you handled yourself today. So I now entertain a motion from Teresa Artis Neal to go into closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board convene in closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute, Section 143-318.11, subsection A, subsection 1, to prevent the disclosure of privileged information under Section 126-22, and also pursuant to Section 143-318.11, subsection A, subsection 2, subsection A, subsection 3, subsection A, subsection 5, subsection A, subsection 6, subsection A, subsection 7, subsection A, subsection 9.
Second.
For the motion of the second, discussion? Not all in favor of the motion to go into closed session, please say aye. Opposed, no. We will be in closed session. We'll give the media and others an opportunity to dismantle their equipment and vacate so that we can start our session in just a few minutes. Thank you.
Rob, cutting the YouTube stream now.
Thank you.
Have you seen the slate?
Yes, the slate is up. We're okay, we're up.
Hey, we are back in open session. Two items coming from closed session for action by the board. First, I'll recognize Trustee Duckett for a report from the University Affairs Committee and action taken by the, recommended by the full board in closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to serve this university. The University Affairs Committee had two personnel item actions coming out of closed for approval by the board, EHRA faculty and non-faculty personnel actions for May 2021, and the official report, the annual employment of related persons report, and both come as a motion for approval.
You've heard the
Second.
motion, seconded by trustee Davis. Further discussion, debate. If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Motion adopted.
That concludes our report. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, trustee Duckett, and for your service. Trustee Davis, report of External Relations Committee.
Thank you, Chairman. In closed session, we approved the slate of the Board of Visitors class of 2025. And so that will need to be voted on in open session as well. So want to make in the form of a motion moving to approve the slate of the class of 2025 for the Board of Visitors.
Does that, Mr. Chairman, include the chair and vice chair?
I'm sorry, yes, it does. It includes the chair, who will be Brian Marley, and the vice chair, who will be Jesse Cureton.
You've heard the motion from committees, or second?
Second.
Second, Bullock. Any further discussion, debate? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Motion approved.
Thank you, Chairman. I do want to offer congratulations to the Board of Visitors class of 2025.
We welcome them. Any further business from External Affairs? Any further business to come before the board?
Just want to thank you, Mr. Chairman. I enjoyed serving with you and getting to know you, and I appreciate your leadership. Appreciate Trustee Duckett's leadership and his the knowledge that he has of the university. I have, as on a person, and this is personal privilege, I hope you're okay with that. And I really wanted to thank Trustee Brown for his thoughtfulness. I've had many conversations with him, particularly on the naming issue and some of the civil discourse, and so I really appreciate that. As for Monroe Dwight Kobe, it's to my left, I want to reiterate his thoughtfulness, professionalism, and brilliance with respect to his assistance with the athletics over the summer during the COVID, because as everyone on this board knows, we faced a financial crisis in athletics, and through a lot of his leadership on that committee that Director Cunningham put together, he was able to help us get to a good place. And I can't thank Kelly Hopkins enough for her, a lot of times early evening conversations, helping me to understand the perspective of board members, her having served now 8 years, and knowledge of the university. So I just want to take personal preference and thank each one of them from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Bullock. Appreciate that. To all of you remaining, good luck to you and your new colleagues. I know you'll have the best interest of the university in mind at all times, and we look forward to watching you from a distance as you do that. Nothing further. Is there a motion that this board adjourn sine die?
So moved, Chairman.
Second. Is there further discussion? Well, that's not debatable. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. We stand adjourned. Thank you all.
All right, Rob.